What's up? What's up, bro? Okay, so I guess I have to keep the camera horizontal. So this doesn't work in landscape. What's up? What's up? Yeah, put you up on here, bro. What's up, everybody? So let me get the homie on here. So let me get my shit together. What's up, bro? What's up?
What up, bro?
What's up? So let me get my shit together. Let me figure this out. So let me put this up. All right, here we go. So for everybody watching. So yeah, let me do it like this. All right. So for everybody watching, this is my first time on Instagram Live. Y'all let me know if y'all like the if y'all like this better than YouTube, whatever. But so me and Joy here. So he requested a natal reading. So me and Joy he requested a natal reading. So I believe you can only go live stream for an hour on Instagram. So we're gonna have to go through this a little quick. So this is just an example of if you got a natal chart reading from me, this is how it will go. Just as an example. You know what I mean? So let's get everything started. Do you have your chart in front of you, bro?
Yep. Got it right here.
All right. You already got it printed up and everything. All right. So definitely when you get a chart from me, I'm definitely going to send you a manuscript so we can follow along. So for everybody listening in, again, this is an example of what a natal chart reading would be. So this isn't necessarily me talking about anything. We about to just go live, and we're gonna try to do this in under an hour. Now, for those who don't know what a natal chart reading is, this again is going into astrology and numerology, so on and so forth. I believe you're already familiar with that. You've been watching the videos for quite some time, bro. So we don't need to go into too many details, right? And exactly. So the point of doing this on Instagram is so they can be saved, right? So after we do this live stream, he's going to be able to save it and he can keep it for however long he wants. So he can rewatch it as many times as he wants to, so he can get it in. So for anybody who wants to read it in the future and you want to do it on Instagram, it doesn't have to be public. It can be private. It is what it is. So we're just giving examples. So let us start the reading, bro. Again, hopefully everything is good. Light, everything seems good over here.
It
All
looks
right.
really good.
All right, let me turn you up. Let me turn you up a little bit. All right, cool. All right, so at the top of the chart, we have the ascendant, right? You have your ascendant at the top. So the ascendant, for those who may not know, your ascendant is your personality. So you have your sun sign, then you have your ascendant. Your ascendant is more so your personality. We have many different aspects of ourselves. See, although we may appear to be like one person or one being, we are composed of many different elements. Because we are composed of many different elements, this is just expressed through the planetary energies. The sun, the moon, Venus, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, so on and so forth. These are just different aspects of who we are. So when it comes to the ascendant again is your personality. So your personality is in Gemini. When we study the aspects of Gemini, we know that Gemini is a master communicator. Now, your Gemini is in 7 degrees. Now, the reason I put the degrees up here is because I like to go a little bit further because you can, look up Ascendant in Gemini or the Sun in Gemini. You can look all these things up on Google and all that, and it will give you a brief description. But the reason I wanted to deal with the actual mathematics is because, again, there's a difference between being a 1 degree Gemini versus a 29th degree Gemini. Again, we know that every zodiac sign has 30 days. So if you're born in the first of the month versus the middle of the month versus the end of the month, you're gonna have you're gonna have different attributes. So because it's 7 degrees Gemini, that's different from 10 degrees. So just making it clear. So that's why I have a description. So when you look at these descriptions under the numerology, these are pretty much if you were to crystallize this into a hold on 1 second. If you were to crystallize these images into an actual sound. So you can say these are vibrations within the universe or sounds within the universe. And if you were to give them shape, they would appear as these descriptions that we have written down. So let us get into it. And again, so we got ascendant in Gemini and 7 degrees. So the description is a whale with a bucket and a rope under the shade of majestic trees. A man's primordial faith in the hidden, sustaining power of life. A fundamental trust in and cooperation with life. I'll read it one more time. A whale with a bucket and rope under the shade of a majestic tree or majestic trees. A man's primordial faith in the hidden, sustaining power of life. A fundamental trust in and cooperation with life. So when we look at ascendant in Gemini, again, the Gemini is a master communicator. The Gemini is ruled by Mercury. So Mercury is all about communication, your actions, and pretty much how you move, so on and so forth, how you think and how you move. You know, Mercury is very flexible. So when we deal with Gemini, which is a mutable sign is a flexible sign. So we know that Gemini is an air sign or a wind sign. So it's dealing with the ether. It's dealing with consciousness. So because we're talking about majestic trees, we also know that trees deal with consciousness, meaning, you know, the trees transmute the carbon into oxygen. So trees have a lot to do with our consciousness. So because it's a majestic tree, there are certain trees that emit certain elements off. It's like an aura. Every tree has an aura. And certain trees, certain majestic trees emit certain elements from it that helps you to gain consciousness and to transcend your consciousness. So this is why the description says a man's primordial faith in the hidden. So a man's primordial faith in the hidden, it means the spiritual, it means the subconscious, it means the unconscious, meaning this is a part of us no matter how primitive our state may be. So it don't matter how ignorant or how knowledgeable we are, we're going to always have a connection to the hidden or the majestic nature of the trees. And this hidden, the man's primordial faith in the hidden, sustaining power of life. So this same hidden power, or we can call this chi, we can call this prana, whatever we want to call it. And again, let me turn this up. Don't want it too loud in the background. So a man's primordial faith in the hidden, sustaining power of life. So this same hidden power that's being emitted from the trees, the majestic trees, is the same power that sustains life. And the description of that is a fundamental trust in and cooperation with life. So when we put all this together, your ascendant, once again, which is your personality in Gemini. So a person with an ascendant, or we say you, because your ascendant is in Gemini, that means the way you communicate people is how a Gemini would communicate with people, which makes you a master communicator, or the potential of a master communicator, because you're able to pull certain thoughts out of the ether, out of the air, because thoughts come to us. Our thoughts don't necessarily generate within our minds. We can generate thoughts within our mind, but most of the time we pull thoughts into us because the thoughts are hidden within the chi or within the prana that's emitted from the trees, right? Because the trees can be considered our elders, right? Because trees, you know, trees can live for hundreds of years. So the ascendant in Gemini means it gives you the ability to pull new thoughts out of the air that, you know, other people just may not have access to, because you have a certain trust in the chi or in the prana that other people may not even be aware of. So because you are aware, you can say, we can call this the fourth dimension just to make it clear. Because you have an awareness of the fourth dimension, or the realm of the trees, the majestic trees, and the type of signals that they are communicating, right? Because we have a certain pull and connection of the trees which sustain life, the more and more you build up that connection with trees, you're going to be able to pull certain things out of the air, certain thoughts that you can help yourself and be able to communicate with other people. So that's why you hear stories of like the Buddhas meditating under the trees, because the trees can sustain life and also give you hidden knowledge. So the tree can be like a guru to you. So you can say maybe you would like to build a connection with the trees so that it can start to give you certain information and give you certain knowledge that you can then communicate with people. It don't necessarily have to be all spiritual. It don't necessarily have to be all knowledgeable. Just your ability to know many different things to communicate with many different people. So the ascendant in Gemini gives you ability to not only have access to hidden knowledge, but have the ability to communicate with all types of people because you know a little bit about everything. So this gives you the ability to communicate with all types of people. Now, again, if you have any questions, if we run out of time and you have any questions for something you don't quite understand, then again, feel free. We can talk on the back end, and we can like maybe talk on the phone or whatever, or schedule another live. So if it don't make sense again, or we run out of time, don't worry about it. I'm gonna make sure that we go through the whole chart. You know what I mean? So again, shout out to everybody that's watching. Give you an example. Now, your next aspect is your sun is also in Gemini. Now, when your sun is in Gemini, now your sun is talking about how you feel about yourself, your inner power, your personal power. So the ascendant is how you communicate with people, your elements of yourself that is all about communication. Now this is the conversation you have within yourself. So the ascendant is a conversation you have with other people. The sun is the conversation you have within yourself. That inner voice that you hear yourself talking to yourself, meaning you can close your mouth but you can still hear your voice. So this is your inner conversation with yourself. Now your sun in Gemini is in 14 degrees in the first house. Now we have 12 houses, so let me describe what the houses are, because now that we're going into the planets are going to go into the houses. The houses are the constellations. The constellation of Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, right? So the houses don't move. The planets move. The planets move through the houses. And depending on the degree of the planet determines the zodiac sign. So let me say that in a different way. So the sun, is going through Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo. So the sun is rotating, you can say. The sun is rotating. Now, as the sun is rotating anyway, it's moving through the constellations. The constellations don't move. The planets move, but the constellations don't move. So as the sun is turning, or any planet, going through the aspects or the degrees, this is how it goes through the degrees. The planet is always revolving. So it's going to be revolving through the constellation of Aries, through the constellation of Taurus, through the constellation of Gemini, so on and so forth. So at the time of your birth, hold on, we want to make sure that the signal is good. Hold on. So is everything good, bro? Can you hear me?
It started skipping a little bit, but I'm still able to hear you.
Hold on.
You were
It's kind of
breaking
choppy.
up the visual.
Make sure this is good. Hold on. We'll make sure this is good. All right, everything good now. It's like it's kind of choppy, but it's more good now. Stabilized. Everything is good. Okay. Okay. So again, if something doesn't make sense, again, we can talk about this, in more detail. Okay. So again, the planets revolve, and these determine the aspects. As they are revolving, they go through the constellations. So when you were born, the sun was going through the constellation of Aries, which is the first house. So again, the first house is pretty much the same zodiac. The first house is Aries, the second house is Taurus, the third house is Gemini, fourth house is Cancer, etc., etc., etc. So when you were born, the sun was revolving in the aspect of Gemini, passing through the first house of the constellation of Aries. When the sun is passing through the constellation of Aries, what happens is pretty much the sun has an influence. Aries has an influence over the sun as the sun is traveling through the constellation. So it's basically like you walking into somebody's house, and whatever rules that they have laid down, you have to follow them because it's their house. Although you may be an individual within yourself, and you have your own rules and regulations that you have determined for your own life. Once you are entering into somebody else's household, then you are subjected to their rules and regulations until you exit their home. So you can say we are walking. You can say we are walking planets, and as we go through other people's homes or other forms of business, we are subjected to their rules or their influence temporarily. We're temporarily influenced by their influence or by their planetary energies until we go through another home or another business. So as we go into any state of business or anybody's home, we have being influenced by their home based on the planetary energies. So, with the sun being influenced by Aries, and we know that Aries is a fire sign. Aries is ruled by. You say something?
Nah, we're all good.
Okay. Okay. So with Aries being ruled by Mars, so this is like the energy of Mars. So with the sun in the first house, meaning it has an influence of Mars energy. So that makes the energy more assertive and more aggressive. You know what I mean? So you got the sun, which is your personal power. Now is very aggressive and very assertive. Not aggressive as in forceful, but very assertive, very ambitious, very demanding, very determined, and very driven. So the sun being in Gemini, again, the Gemini is the master communicator, being able to communicate with many different people about many different things, right? Being flexible in your conversation. So again, your personal power. This gives you ability to be flexible not only in your conversations with other people, but the type of information you're able to absorb. You're able to absorb for yourself many different aspects of information, and you can piece all these things together because, again, Gemini is a bunch of components. It's a mutable sign. A mutable sign, which means a flexible sign. So that's the Gemini, that's the Virgo, that's the Sagittarius, and that's the Pisces. Those are immutable signs, meaning these signs are very flexible, like a snake slithering. So you are able to take bits and pieces of information from all over the world or from many different people, and you can pretty much create your own spiritual system by taking many aspects of knowledge from all over the planet and many different people. So you have the ability to compose or composite many different ways of life and many different thinking methodologies, many different cultures, and you can compile them into your own way of life. Now, this is described. Now that we go to the definition says bridging physical space and social. Hold on 1 second, because I wrote this pretty close. So this says, so bridging physical space and social distinctions. Two men communicate telepathically. Sorry, two men communicate telepathically. There we go. So now, because we're dealing with telepathy, because we're dealing with a psychic ability, so this is telling you that you have the potential, as I just said in a different way, you have the potential to communicate utilizing your telepathy. When you communicate utilizing your telepathy, that's how you're able to communicate with trees. That's how you're able to communicate with the grass. That's how you're able to communicate with the plants, with animals, with spirits. Anything beyond the physical or anything we don't feel like we can naturally move our mouth, we can utilize telepathy. So this is how you can communicate, you can say, with the chi or the ether or the spirits in the air. We do this, or the fairies. You can say when you want to tap into the elementals, they're called elementals. You have elementals that live in the trees that we can't perceive with our eyes. Some people call these things fairies. So let's just say you want to communicate with these fairies. You will have to use your telepathy. Like some people in ancient times, they will leave a bowl of water by a tree so that the tree can feed on the chi within the water, and that would nurture the tree, and it would get the intention of the fairies to pretty much let them know that you're trying to create a bond. So you may be drawn to a certain tree. It may be a tree in your backyard, it may be a tree in your front yard, it may be a certain park you would like to go to. If you want to build a communication with trees, because again, however, whatever you feel most comfortable with, you can do it however you want it. But utilizing the ability of telepathy comes natural to you now that you know that your alignments naturally are geared to this type of energy. So you have the ability to make further connections. This is what gives you the ability to learn many different things simultaneously, and you can create your own way of life based on the information that you are receiving, utilizing the ability of telepathy. Now, the second definition says the capacity to transcend the limitations of bodily existence, technique of transcendence. So, because the more you start to utilize your telepathy, this gives you the capacity to transcend the limitations of bodily existence. So, in other words, again, So we may not always be able to communicate fully using our mouths. We may not have mastery over the English language. There may be certain thoughts that you have that you may not have words to express. But when we utilize more, or when you utilize your telepathy, meaning your natural ability, so this is a natural ability you have. You have the ability to communicate utilizing your telepathy. And depending on how you want to use it, you can practice however you want to use it. You can practice it with children, young children, being able to communicate, utilize your telepathy, because you tap into the greater minds. You tap into the greater mind of the tree, or the greater mind of the child, or the greater mind of the plant, whatever it is, meaning that infinite source of wisdom. So you're not talking to pretty much the conscious mind, you're talking to the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind has that infinite wisdom. So you wouldn't even necessarily be communicating with them on a conscious level to the point where they would even understand. But you're communicating to the aspects of them that is ageless. So it may be a 1-year-old child. So obviously, consciously, the 1-year-old child may not know what's going on, but you can communicate subconsciously to that infinite wisdom that is within all of us and actually have a conversation. But again, you're like, why would I want to have a conversation with a 1-year-old? It's just utilizing your telepathy to realize that you can do it. You know what I mean? Like, you can do it. You can communicate with things that we don't even think about. You can communicate with a tree. You communicate with something without utilizing your mouth. So that's the whole thing. You can communicate with anything in this planet and anything outside of this planet, such as other planets or other planetary influences or other constellations. You can communicate with all these things, everything from the stars all the way down to insects and plants. You can communicate with everything in between utilizing your telepathy. So your sun in Gemini is pretty much letting you know that you can communicate beyond just utilizing your mouth and beyond just, how me and you are communicating. Now, once we move on to your moon, we see that your moon is in Virgo in 21 degrees, also in the 5th house. So when we talk about the 5th house, we're talking about Leo. Now we're dealing with the energy of Leo. So once again, so when you were born, the moon was traveling in a degree of Virgo, and you were born while the moon was traveling in the constellation of Leo. Now, when we bring in the energy of Leo, we know that Leo is a concentrated flame. So you can say this is a fixed sign. The fixed signs are the Leos or the Scorpios or the Aquarius, right? And I'm missing one of the fixed signs. So again, you have the Aquarius for the wind, you have the Leo for the fire, you have the Scorpio for the water, and for the earth, you have Taurus. That's the one I missed. So you have those. Those are the 4 fixed signs. So when we're dealing with fixed signs, we're dealing with concentrated energy. So when we look at the Leo is ruled by the sun. The sun is a concentrated flame. It's a concentrated ball of fire. So when we're dealing with the energy of the sun, we know because the sun has mastered the ability to contain its energy, it's not going to burn up the planet. It's going to nurture the planet because it has learned how to control its inner workings. So it makes sure that, because if it pretty much, you can say, if it emits too much energy, everything will be burned around and there will be no existence of a solar system because it will set everything on fire. But so because it has intelligence, because the sun is intelligent, it knows not to emit too much power, just enough power to give life to the solar system. So when we're dealing with the moon deals with the subconscious mind. So the sun deals with the conscious mind, the moon deals with the subconscious mind. So these are the things that we don't necessarily consciously think about on a day-to-day basis. You know how to pay the rent, spending time with your family, spending time, with your loved ones, so on and so forth. These are the conscious thoughts we have on a daily basis. But on a subconscious level, we're dealing with the moon. Now, Virgo is also a mutable sign or a flexible sign. So the energy of the Virgo is all about being a problem solver. So the energy of Virgo is all about solving problems and being more efficient and being able to save time, being able to do things quicker, and being able to be a problem solver as well as somebody who solves problems. So be able to create jobs versus being able to help somebody else at a job. So you're able to help other people realize their potentials as well as be the person that's building. You are a builder as well as somebody who can help somebody else build as well. So you can build your own thing and you can help somebody else build up their own thing, whether it be something mentally or something physically. Now, when we go into the definition of this, the definition says a girls' basketball team. Now, the definition says physical training as a means to insulate the feeling of participation in a collective culture, or other words, group integration. So as I was saying, the moon in Virgo gives you the ability to work within a group on the subconscious level. So how does all that play out? So let me set this down for a second. Because moon in Virgo gives you the ability to work in a group consciousness or collective, again, this gives you the ability to help somebody shape and mold. You can say a business. We just say a business. Somebody's trying to get their business off the ground. You can come in and help them solve these problems that they having a hard time figuring out. Well, how do I do this? How do I, do this paperwork? How do I, who do I go to get a good price to get these shipments in and whatever. So you have the natural ability to come in and help somebody to solve their problems and work as a group. It can be many different people. It don't have to necessarily be a one-on-one thing. It can be many different people trying to start something that they're having a hard time, just doing physical things. Like, how do I get this physical paperwork? How do I get the merchandise? How do I get this? How do I get that? So you have the ability by your moon being in Virgo, which is an earth sign, you have the ability to help structure and mold earthly things. Anything that has something to do with the earth, you're good at shaping and molding and putting things together and make sure that things are working efficiently. So, because we're talking about group integration, this also works in your favor as well. Whenever that you want to start something, whenever you dedicate yourself, maybe you already have. Whatever you have dedicated yourself in terms of, I want to be a problem solver, whatever method, whatever path you choose to be a problem solver in, you understand that it's easy for you to work in a group collective when everybody has the same mentality. Again, what if people don't have the same mentality? You also have the ability, as we just spoken about, with your sun sign, you have the ability to communicate utilizing your telepathy. So this is why the moon represents the subconscious. So you can say, okay, so let's just say, as an example, it's you and seven people, and y'all trying to figure out how to get something accomplished. So by you realize, like, okay, we have to pull from a greater source. We may not have the capacity to think and to figure this out. We just may not have it for whatever reason. So by you activating your telepathy, because it's your moon sign, once again, so you can say, okay, let me activate my telepathy and let me pull information from outside of ourselves. So let me go outside of this seven group, or the 7 group plus you. So 8 people. Let me go outside of these 8 people and let me pull information from outside. Then utilize this information to accomplish whatever we're trying to accomplish. Because again, if we can't consciously think about, or if we can't consciously solve this problem, we have to go into our subconscious, that infinite wisdom, utilizing our telepathy. We have to go into our subconscious mind. Now, the subconscious mind is tapped into that infinite wisdom. So now it's all about making that connection. So the same way you will communicate with the tree, you can communicate with people's minds on a subconscious level utilizing your telepathy. So you can communicate utilizing your telepathy on a conscious level through your sun sign, and you can utilize your telepathy utilizing your moon sign and tapping into that infinite wisdom. So you can test this out whenever you're with a group of people and y'all trying to figure out how something is done. Nobody can kind of come to a conclusion. This is a grand ability, not a grand ability, a grand opportunity for you to tap into your telepathy and just to exercise your psychic ability. To exercise, okay, let me put it into action. You can do this on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, just depending on how much you want to put into it. You just test it more and more. You know what I mean? You may feel drawn again to certain elements, to certain trees, to certain people, to certain places for whatever reason. So you just utilize more of your telepathy. So let me give you a technique, because I'm talking about telepathy. Let me give you an actual technique. You know what I mean? So we don't keep it too far in the stars. So an example of communicating, utilizing your telepathy would be, so let's just say you wanna, we just use people. So let's not go into nature and birds and trees and all that. We just use people, just as an example to make it clear, something that you can try out for yourself. So an example of utilizing telepathy would be to communicate utilizing your imagination. So what do I mean? So for example, let's just say you're having a spiritual conversation with somebody about whatever it is, and they're trying to understand spirituality a little bit more. So you can visualize, because your third eye resonates with an indigo color or a dark bluish color. So you can utilize a dark bluish cord coming out of your third eye and connecting with their third eye. So you are imagining like a dark blue beam of light, a beam of light connected from your third eye to their third eye, and you're sending signals to them. So you see the beam of light pulsating, and that pulsation is you sending intelligence. Again, you may not consciously, like, I don't know what, it's on the subconscious level. So you're sending energy to them to help them figure out whatever it is that they're trying to figure out. So you're sending energy to their subconscious, and so when their subconscious, it's creating images. So it's like you're sending images to them in the form of this beam of light. So you're sending images to the subconscious mind. And once the subconscious mind is influenced, that information can come up to the conscious mind, and they come up with a solution like, oh wait, there it is. I figured it out. Right? So, or you can utilize this with the crown chakra. You can utilize a purple beam of light shooting from the tip of the head, or a white beam of light, purple, whatever you want to call it. So, just utilize the chakras. So again, the root chakra is red, the sacral chakra is orange, the solar plexus is yellow, the heart chakra is green, the throat chakra is light blue, again, dark blue, then purple. So you can utilize your imagination and shoot beams of energy from whatever chakra. So again, a spiritual conversation would be the third eye, or the tip, or the crown chakra. You can say just a more on a general tip, more generalized conversation. The throat chakra, a light beam of light. So you just want to have general conversation just to keep the energy flowing. Imagine a light blue beam of light connecting with whoever you're talking to. So you establish a connection. If it's more on a love level, on a family level or a relationship level, then you can do it from the heart chakra. If it's more about competition, you and your brothers or you and your friends, if it's more about competition, and masculine energy, you can utilize the yellowish energy of the solar plexus. If it's more about creativity, if you're trying to help spark creativity, you can utilize the solar plexus, which is like an orangish energy. And lastly, the root chakra, which is a reddish energy. This is all about building up your foundation. So it's for people who's trying to build up their foundation of life, who's trying to discover who and what they are, trying to connect back to their roots, not necessarily on a spiritual level, just on a mundane level, just how to, build, becoming an adult, how to, get a job, pay your bills, just get the basic necessities, laid the foundation down. You can help them with a reddish blue of light, not a reddish beam of light, sorry. So just going through the chakras. So this is just techniques so that you can utilize your telepathy and realize that these things actually work. So these are techniques that you can put in for you to see, like, you can do more than just communicate with your mouth. You can communicate with your mind and your imagination. All right.
Oh yeah.
So here we go. The next planet is Mercury. Your Mercury is in Cancer in 7 degrees in the second house. So the second house is a house of Taurus. Now the house of Taurus is all about possessions. What do you own? What do you have? Right? So when we're thinking about Mercury in the constellation of Taurus. So the influence Taurus has over your Mercury, and again, Mercury is all about how you communicate, how you think, and how you move. So how you communicate, how you think, and how you move is under the influence of the second house or under the influence of Taurus. Taurus is ruled by Venus. So Taurus is all about beauty and being able to beautify your life. Taurus is all about beauty. So if you know Taurus, they're all about beauty, they're all about physical comforts, they're all about security. So your Mercury, your ability to think, communicate, and move, being influenced by Taurus and possessions mean this is a person who basically likes to communicate, likes to act, and like to think in terms of, on a mundane level, you can say how to increase a bank account. How can I be wealthy? How can I be successful? So your mind and your thoughts are geared towards that. But on the spiritual level, it's more so about how can I build up my spiritual ability or my spiritual power so that I can have a greater influence. It's like the difference between you speaking in front of 20 people, and I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of what I mean. So you have a person who goes up in front of people, speaks in front of however many people it is. They're utilizing their mouth. So they're communicating with their mouth. So 20 minutes. So boom, they say whatever they say whatever they gotta say, then they get off stage. You on the other hand, because you understand telepathy, you know that I can actually utilize my imagination, so I don't have to solely depend on my words. So what I could do is, you can imagine 4 beams of light at the edges of the room. So at all the edges, the square, at all the edges, you have a golden ball of light at each of the 4 edges of the room. These 4 golden balls of light meet at the center of the room. So you got them high, then they all meet at the center of the room, and you have a 5th point. So now it looks like an upside down pyramid or inverted pyramid. Now, within this pyramid is contained all of the people are within this pyramid. So now you have all the people within this inverted pyramid, you can say of golden light, if you want to visualize the color. And now you can imagine this golden pyramid spinning, right? This golden pyramid is spinning. So as you are communicating your message in your mind or in your imagination, you are imagining a golden pyramid spinning around, having an influence over the minds of the people. So as you communicate your message, whatever the message may be, and you are utilizing your imagination at the same time, getting influencing the subtle energies and mixing everything up, you will see that your communication will be more effective. You will be able to see the difference between me standing up here communicating with somebody and just utilizing my words, and utilizing my words along with my imagination and keeping my imagination active. And you can see that it has a greater influence on how people feel about what you're saying. So this is influencing how people feel about whatever it is that you're communicating, because they're going to be able to feel that the change of influence or the change of energy within the room. They don't know necessarily that you're doing this. And of course, you're going to get better and better at this the more and more you practice, but they're going to be able to sense a change in sensation, which will affect the way they feel about the things that are coming out your mouth. So now you're not you're not dependent on what you can communicate, and you choosing the proper words, as they say. It's not about what you say, it's about how you say it, because how you say it affects the emotions of the people. So that you're gearing more towards affecting the emotions of the people, because the better you can make somebody feel when you communicate with them, the more chances that they will be receptive to whatever it is that you're saying. So this is just giving you an example of being able to communicate, not only utilizing your tongue, but to utilize your mind and your imagination, and to have a whole animated scene in your head while you are communicating at the same time. And now you're influencing people on the conscious level as well as a subconscious level to have a greater influence, right? So let's get back to the Mercury, and let's look at the description.
Right.
And that's why your Mercury is in Cancer. And we know that Cancer, being a water sign, we know that Cancer, you can say it's a cardinal sign. So you got the mutable sign, you got a fixed sign, and you got a cardinal sign. Again, the mutable signs are the flexible signs, the fixed signs are the concentrated signs, and the cardinal signs are like waterfalls. So the Cancer is like a waterfall, meaning all of the energy, it's a large amount of energy going in one direction. That's what a cardinal sign is. It's a large energy. You can say like a waterfall. You got all this water going in one direction. Versus a fixed sign. A fixed sign is like an ocean, a still ocean. Ocean that's not moving, that's still. That's a concentrated. So you got cardinal, which is all this energy moving in one direction. You got the fixed, which is like an ocean not moving. You got the mutable, which is like lakes and rivers going in many different directions. You know, they're going there like this. You know, river goes this way, then it breaks into two, then it breaks over here, breaks over there. So the mutable sign can break and move and be swift and changeable. The fixed sign is a concentrated sign. Then the cardinal is all of this energy being directed into one path. So because the Cancer, you can say, represents a waterfall, and your Mercury, again, represents how you think, how you communicate, and how you act. Again, this is why I say you have the ability to influence people's emotions with your communication. So this is why I'm talking about communication and affecting people's emotions. So you have this ability to affect people's emotion as you communicate when you utilize your imagination. So when we read the description, it says here, it says two nature spirits dancing under the moonlight, the play of invisible forces in all manifestations of life, creative imagination. So this is why I was giving you all these abilities. So you see, creative imagination is basically you playing with the invisible forces. When you utilize your imagination in a creative fashion, you are playing with the invisible forces all around us. These invisible forces, as we know, again, is chi or prana. You know, real, whatever you want to call the invisible substance, the ether, right? So we have a name for it. So this is you influencing the ethers around everybody, the invisible forces. So when you influence the invisible forces, this has the ability to influence people's emotions. So that's why it says two nature spirits dancing under the moonlight. Because again, we know that the moon represents the subconscious. So, and we know dancing is a creative aspect of expression. It's creative expression. So you have creative expression of the subconscious mind, which is being able to, again, utilize your telepathy and being able to, it's like you're doing whatever you're doing in life already. Whatever you're doing, however you go about life, you're doing the same thing you're doing already. You're just utilizing your creative imagination while you do what you already do so that you can see that you have a greater influence on whatever it is that you're doing anyway. So however you have structured your life already, this is just going to the creative visualization and the creative imagination and to apply that to what you're already doing so that you can see a grander aspect of life. Like, okay, I can communicate with nature. That's why it's two nature spirits dance. It's like, yo, I can communicate with the spirits of nature. I can communicate with people on an emotional level by being able to utilize my mind. So this is just giving you aspect of, again, telepathy and how vast our minds really are beyond us using our physical tongues and our voices, so on and so forth. So once again, the play of invisible forces in all manifestations of life. So that means all manifestations of life have the ability to be under telepathy. You can utilize your telepathy in all manifestations of life. Again, whether it's family, whether it's girlfriends, whether it's co-workers, you know, whoever it is, again, the spirits of nature, all of these things can be communicated utilizing the telepathy that you have an innate ability to utilize. So, and again, because Mercury is in the second house, the house of Taurus, we understand that it's all about you being able to utilize your telepathy and to beautify your surroundings. For example, so you're not utilizing your telepathy to lower the vibration, you're utilizing your telepathy to up the vibration. So again, so when you are communicating with somebody and you imagine that dark blue beam of light going into their beam of light, that's not necessarily lowering their vibration or their consciousness. That's bringing their consciousness up so they can be more receptive to things on a subconscious level. So this is raising up their receptivity to telepathy. When you actually utilize telepathy, this is heightening their senses. So this is making sure that you are being able to beautify. So once they understand that, it's they feel something different. You don't necessarily have to reveal what you're doing. It's just to let you know on a personal level that you have a greater influence on the conscious mind as well as the subconscious mind, because this is just the psychic ability or the gift that was given to you at birth. This is the gift that you can utilize throughout any area of your life to give you an advantage, to give you a wider perspective of life from a spiritual level and from a psychic level. So now that we move to Venus, the planet of love, the planet of connections, the planet of friendships and partnerships, we see that your Venus is in Taurus. So Venus rules the zodiac sign of Taurus, so that's a connection right there. But Venus is in the 12th house. Now the 12th house is the house of Pisces. Now Pisces is a mutable water sign. So again, mutable signs are these signs that are swift and changeable. So the Pisces represents the lakes and rivers. The Cancer represents the waterfall. You can say the Scorpio represents the still oceans. Is your Pluto is in Scorpio, so we're going to talk about Scorpio as we go further down. But we're dealing with Pisces right now. So the Pisces, if we're just dealing with the element of water, it's like lakes and rivers being able to spread all over the earth. So because your Venus is in the 12th house, the house of Pisces, so that Venus was traveling in the aspect of Taurus, it was under the influence of Pisces. If we study Pisces, we know that Pisces rules over places like jails and hospitals and institutions, things that pretty much is all about, what do they call it? Rehabilitation. There we go. Like places where people come to recover and to heal. So Pisces rules over places like that. People go to hospitals to heal. They say they send people to jail to rehabilitate their mind. So whenever we're talking about, healing, we're talking about the energy of Pisces. So because your Venus is being influenced by the 12th house, that means Venus, again, the planet of love, there is some type of healing going on in this aspect. And because it's representing Taurus, and we know that Taurus is all about beautifying life, and it's all about possessions, again, the bank account, how to make my bank account bigger. But I don't just want to make my bank account bigger. I want to actually help people in the process. Or I want to, heal people in the process. But everybody may not want to be a doctor. Everybody may not want to be a massage therapist. So when I talk about healing, I'm not necessarily talking about your profession. Your profession doesn't necessarily resonate with healing. This is all about utilizing the innate abilities in the mind. You are healing yourself by activating. They say we utilize 10% of our brain, right? So self-healing does represent tapping into the 90% of our brain that is not tapped into. It's latent because you're not learning this stuff in school. You probably can't go to a library and learn this, and you probably can't communicate with a lot of people and learn this type of stuff. So most of the time, for most people, this stuff just stays within their minds and they never tap into it. However, because we are learning how to tap into these things in this day and time, now we can utilize more of our mind and be more imaginative and more creative. So it just gives getting us thinking on a more creative level instead of a more logical level. But if we want to deal with logic, again, that's more so with Mercury. But Venus is more creative. So let me go back so you can understand what I'm saying. So the sun is the conscious mind. The moon is the subconscious mind. Mercury is the logical mind or the left brain. Venus is the right brain. So Mercury was talking more about the logical side. Venus is talking about the creative side, how to be more creative, creatively expressive, through the aspect of Pisces or the 12th house, meaning the house of healing and rehabilitation, and it's like the phoenix rising from the ashes. So you being in a dark place and being able to lift yourself up into the light. So when we read a description of Venus and Taurus in the 12th house, we see that it says, white dove flying over troubled waters. The spiritual inspiration that comes to the individual in the overcoming of crisis. So once again, the white dove flying over troubled waters. So as we say. You know, you can say when you're in the hospital, you're in troubled waters. When you're in jail, you're in troubled waters. When you're in these institutions, you're in troubled waters. Meaning you're trying to bring yourself out of a bad place. Like, damn, what did I do to go to jail? Let me get my mind right. How do I end up in the hospital? I was going too hard. I was doing too much. I was straining myself. I was doing a little bit too much. Excuse me. So then it started to affect my health. So now you're in a down place, right? But you are the white dove in these places. You represent the white dove flying over the troubled waters. And that's what Venus and Taurus represent. It represents you being able, you see these troubled waters. It don't necessarily have to be in the jail. It don't necessarily have to be in these physical places. It's just a mindset. So whenever you see troubled waters, again, so whenever you see it, whether a person going through something or you going through something yourself, you always put your mind in the perspective of the white dove being able to fly over the troubled waters. So you don't get necessarily involved in the troubled waters because you have the ability to fly over it. Why? Because you can utilize your creative imagination to keep your mind elevated. So let's just say you are going through troubled waters yourself. Even if you yourself are going through troubled waters, you can keep your mind elevated. So let's just say, somebody that you gotta go to jail for 2 weeks. This is horrible for the average person. But you, being the white dove, being able to fly over the troubled waters, right? And I know, like nobody who wants to go to jail, right? But whatever. Even if you were in a predicament like that, even if you were in a bad situation, you being able to utilize your creative imagination and you can just keep your mind elsewhere. So you're not just dwelling on, damn, I'm fucked up. I'm in a bad position. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna lose my job. I'm gonna, this. People just start thinking about all this stuff, right? You are not even going to subject yourself to that type of thinking. You're going to be the white dove flying over the troubled water, which once again, the definition of that is the spiritual inspiration that comes to the individual in the overcoming of crisis. So that spiritual inspiration, meaning the ability to see beyond your current situation, that spiritual inspiration comes from your ability to overcome a crisis. So again, we live in a world when people are trying to prevent crisis. That's just the type of world we live in. We want to prevent before things happen. But we can't always do that in every single situation. So this is pretty much telling you that even when you may be in situations that may be deemed, troubled waters, any situation that may be deemed troubled waters, or you're in troubled waters, because you understand, I need to overcome this. Just for my own sake, I need to be the white dove flying over the troubled water. It don't matter if it's me going through it or somebody else going through it. I need to keep that mindset of the white dove traveling over the troubled water, because I know when you travel over the troubled water, you are able to be spiritually influenced. You can't be spiritually influenced when you dwell on the darkness, right? You can't dwell on the darkness, and no matter how dark the situation may seem, you can always take your mind beyond the darkness and keep your mind elevated in the light. And it is the light that it sparks the spiritual inspiration that will help you to keep your mind in the light, and whatever could have happened to you will end up not happening to you. What do I mean by that? Meaning you can be, let's not use jail. Let's not use jail. We can just say, um, what would be any situation that just may be troubling you. Again, let's just say you may need an extra $200, at the end of the month, and you may not have work enough hours, right? So you got to figure out, like, okay, how do I get this extra $200? I may not be able to work extra hours, whatever. So you can say, okay, because you got to get the rent paid, got to take care of the kids, got to do this, got to do that. So instead of you dwelling on, I need that 200, I need that 200, I need that 200, I need 200, because if I don't get it, then this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. Instead of thinking like that, you keep your mind over the troubled waters, like the white dove, and you keep your mind in the light. Like, all right, I'm gonna get the money, whatever money I need, I'm gonna get it, no matter what. No doubt, no feeling bad about myself, none of that. I'm gonna keep my mind focused and concentrated on the end result. Making sure that everything is good. So you keep your mind focused and concentrated, and you keep yourself in a meditative position. It's like, again, you got chaos going on all around you, but as I say, you are the silence in the middle of the hurricane. We got chaos all around us. Whether we got chaos all around us. When you are the silence within the midst of the hurricane, that's where you can find spiritual inspiration. And that spiritual inspiration will lead you to the money that you need. Because you're not dwelling in the darkness. Because once you start dwelling in the darkness, it just attracts more dark. You start to magnetize more of that because you're directing your attention into what if. Well, if this doesn't happen, then this is going to happen. If this doesn't happen, then this is not going to happen. People just start thinking about terror, when things don't go according to plan. Why? Because people are more concerned with preventing bad things from happening than actually dealing with bad things when they do happen. People are not really too good at dealing with bad things when they actually do happen. That's why they're always trying to prevent. But when something actually does go down, because inevitably we will all go through troubled water at many times of our lives. We will be faced with troubled water in various scenarios. But when you keep your mind out of the darkness, when you keep your mind beautified, because that's what Venus is all about, your Venus in Taurus is all about being able to utilize your creative mind or your right brain to beautify your experience no matter what you're going through. So no matter what you're going through on a physical level, you're able to beautify your mind. Utilizing your imagination. You utilize your imagination to beautify your thoughts, rather. Utilize your imagination or your right brain to beautify your thoughts. No matter what you're going through, keep your mind in the light instead of dwelling on the darkness. And this allows you, once again, to find that spiritual inspiration. That's how the Spirit speaks to you. The Spirit can't speak to you when you're dwelling in the darkness. The Spirit can only speak when you keep your mind in a receptive mode. That's what I mean by being meditative. It's like a person meditating. But a lot of people can meditate, when they don't have nothing going on, when they're in their room, when they're in their home by themselves. But a lot of people find it hard to meditate while you are dealing with life. So this is pretty much encouraging you to stay in a meditative state while doing everything that we do in life. Right? So again, just to sum it all up, Venus and Taurus, being able to beautify, utilizing your right brain. Again, Venus represents the right brain. Utilizing your right brain or your imagination to beautify your thoughts. While, again, we're talking about your Venus is in the 12th house. The house of Pisces means a house of rehabilitation, meaning when you're in the darkness. So to beautify your thoughts while in darkness, which represents that white dove flying over the troubled waters, because that white dove has found spiritual inspiration by not being able to be sucked into the darkness. Right? So hopefully, all that is making sense. I'm not really seeing I'm not seeing a clock on here, so I'm not sure how much time we have, but we're just gonna keep going. It's 10:30, we're 30 minutes in, but we're gonna keep going as long as we can keep going as long as we can go. So before I continue, you have is anything not making sense? Is everything correlated?
It's all sticking. You're breaking it down really well.
All right. Okay. So again, feel free to stop me at any time if something doesn't make sense. All right. So we just dealt with Venus. So let's go to Mars. So your Mars is in Cancer in the 9th degree in the 2nd house. So again, once again, we know that 2nd house, this is a house of Taurus, which is all about beautification, beautifying your bank account as well as beautifying your thoughts. Okay, it's telling me that it's saying that it's 30 seconds remaining. Hold on, let me make sure that everything is good because I have a little countdown. Do you see this countdown?
No, I don't see it.
Yeah, because I see a 10-second countdown, so I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to cut off or whatever. So
let me see. Save the video and then come back in?